Well, Stu, happy post-election.
Good afternoon, young man. Good afternoon.
Were you weeping with all the liberals in the park over this absolutely spectacular humiliation of the Biden regime?
No, I wasn't weeping. I had in this election, the issue I cared about most was orderly ingress of immigrants, not chaos. And that, of course, pointed in one direction. And then I was on the other side. I was very concerned about all the defects in Trump's character and the lack of substance on the other side with the competitor. And so
Yeah, I know. I mean, this was a tough decision for me because I've loathed Donald Trump. He repulses me in every way. But you know what repulses me more? The Biden failure, his disgusting presidency, and the woke agenda that is destroying the fabric of this country, immigration being one of them.
causing Democrats, probably more male than female, to move over to the other side.
It's really interesting, but some of I'm going to talk happy talks, Stu. Even though I am enjoying the spite like a fine glass of wine, okay, I am enjoying this because the progressive disaster that they have tried to inflict on us, I am getting huge satisfaction from this, and I hope that Trump is as vindictive and hateful as I know he is, and he goes after all of them. But let's talk about some of the highlights, to me, of this election. First of all, one of the things we've been talking about is progressives and their soft on crime policies and the damages they have done to New York and other cities throughout the country. And George Gascon, a George Soros-funded progressive prosecutor, was defeated in a humiliating loss in Los Angeles. His opponent, Nathan Hochman, got 61% of the vote in Los Angeles. That is how bad these progressive prosecutors. And Fat Alvin Bragg, you better pay attention. But I don't think he's going to change his fat, arrogant, Sunday-eating ways. Trust me. And then, even better, this is also in California. Maybe California is finally getting to its senses, but I doubt it. Proposition 36 on the California ballot, it increased the penalties for repeated theft offenders and certain drug crimes. It passed by 70% in a liberal state. And this is a reversing course from these failed left-wing policies that have left our jail doors open for criminals to harass us. Now, in New York, we did not have those things on the ballot, but I'm telling you that legislature, we should all be going after them because they have done this to us. But what we did notice in New York is that this is a very Democrat city. It is very liberal, although we've had two Republican mayors, Giuliani, the lunatic, and Bloomberg, although Bloomberg became an independent and he's more of a middle-of-the-roader. But Trump increased his share of the vote in New York in working-class neighborhoods in the Bronx, Queens, certain parts of Brooklyn by a pretty good margin. A lot of people, not the AOC crowd, the pot-smoking hippies who live off their parents' trust fund, the real guts of New York City, the working class who have been oppressed by their COVID policies, their soft on crime policies, the terrible educational system that they have provided, they went out and they voted for Donald Trump. Here in New York City, where you're going to find this funny, I know this, even though I'm not a hippie, I do go to yoga still. And in the yoga studio before the election, they were doing a chant for the nation. And I was like, this is funny. I mean, they're very nice people and very well.
Did you participate?
I don't think a chant's going to help. Well, but I think they're very nice people. I like going, but I just thought it was kind of funny because I'm guessing they're a little concerned about what's to come with Donald Trump. But I think the biggest loser in this election is that senile, disgusting Joe Biden, who has a legacy of failure on immigration. He allowed all those people into the country with unchecked chaos. It's a disaster. He contributed to the inflationary spiral that has pissed off a lot of Americans, and it then tried to deny that it was even in existence. They appeased Iran. They allowed them to make $150 billion in oil revenue, which they then used to spread terrorism and attack Israel. And then, in response to that, a good contingent of their party engaged in anti-Semitic behavior, and there's no question about it. And I'm referring to the Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar, and that whole crowd. And then these same people wanted to lecture me about my white privilege, how I need to pay reparations, how everything I do is racist, yet I had never owned a slave, Stu, and I didn't participate in anti-Semitic behavior like they did, and I certainly don't think I need to pay reparations to people who have never been slaves. They want to make me their slave. I will burn every dollar I have before I pay a nickel to these people. They are disgusting. And now Biden and his legacy and his abuse of the Justice Department to go after his political enemies is now going to all end up in a trash heap of history, just like the other garbage, because he is the garbage, and good riddance to him. As for Kamala, I don't really feel a lot of animus towards her. I just feel she was a pathetic empty suit who would have never gotten the nomination if they had a competitive primary, and Biden hadn't have gaslighted all of us and his team pretending like the guy could actually climb a stairs. But at the end of the day, this is a spiteful moment for me, and God bless America, and I can't wait to hear Kid Rock do the national anthem at the inauguration.
Oh, God.
I know. How do you feel? Well, you kind of already said how you feel about all this, Stu.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking forward with fear. I am looking forward with concern to what the president will do, especially to some of those actions he'll take on day one, like releasing some of those felons and misdemeanor miscreants who attempted to take over
The January 6th people.
He's going to release some, or
He's going to pardon all of them.
I don't know about all, but that just sickens me. And yes, I think it's another disaster will come about when Trump manages to avoid most, if not all, of the criminal prosecutions that were in effect, especially that documents case.
Well, though both those, Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, is already packing his bags because that's done. And truthfully, Stu, I'm going to have to say this, and I know you may not agree. I think a lot of these cases are manufactured. They're politically motivated, and they were intended to stop him from getting elected. Instead, despite the cases and the felony conviction here in New York, which is probably not going to hold, Fat Alvin Bragg is going to get overturned on appeal. He may not even get to sentence him. And that other ridiculous Letitia James, who was out on the news yesterday saying how she's going to continue to fight. We already know the New York State Court of Appeals heard her ridiculous claims, and they were questioning it. She's going to end up owing Trump money by the time this is all done, and it would serve her right. But we can now close the chapter on the 2024 election and the failed legacy of Joe Biden. And goodbye, Tampon Tim.
All right. Let me see. I got one that I find an interesting news story. But first, you have to understand that the underlying incident occurred on the 3rd of May in 2022. But notice that date is in the middle of the pandemic. And that's the background. So there's a flight that left JFK on May 3, headed for Budapest with a stop in Frankfurt. A small number of people, let's say 100, let's say about 100, were Jewish folks wearing traditional Jewish garb. So there'd be the shawls, there could be yarmulkes or other flat hats, and mostly dressed in black and ringlets and all that. So there were about 100 on the flight. About 10 of them, and that's my guess because I couldn't find a better number, but a small number of that small portion of the 100, I think 10, were congregating in the aisles and were not wearing their masks. Now, during the pandemic, I don't care whether you agree or disagree, it was, at that point, that was the rule. You were on flights, you wear your masks. And most people didn't object to that, but you follow the rule. So these people refused orders from, or directions, not orders, requests from the staff, from the crew, to put their masks on and not to congregate in the aisles. That raised congregating in the aisles brought about both a safety issue and an intrusion on their ability to serve customers who were lawfully on the flight. So they gave a number of requests, and then there was not a rebellion, but there's not a willingness to abide by the requests. So the crew advises the captain of this security issue that's in the main cabin. He advises their security people in Frankfurt. And when they arrived in Frankfurt, the security people put a hold on all 100, we'll call it 100, of the Jewish folks in garb, refused to let them continue on to Budapest. Now, you could say, why wasn't it just the 10, the number that I picked of 10? Well, just think for a moment. How would you attempt to identify these folks? Could you say, give me your name? Could you require that they get fastened in their seatbelts and try and enforce that? Or what if the crew members took pictures of the offenders? None of those things would have created anything but more chaos and more objection. But you can imagine those thoughts were rolling around to the minds of security in Frankfurt, in the Lufthansa boardroom and the like, knowing what could arise out of this. But all 100 were not given permission to continue on to Budapest. They, however, were paid a sum, which I'll estimate at about $20,000 apiece, for the inconvenience, because they were
$20,000?
That's what I'll estimate, because they said why it gets to be a current story is because in October of this year, 2024, the Department of Transportation fined Lufthansa for $4 million, $2 million of which they were given credit for because of prior payments to the customers. Well, I just took my number of 100 and that came out to, with 2 million, and it came out to $20K a person, if I did my math right. And so they had to pay 2 more to DOT, but that's why it's a current issue. And the DOT said, and this stunned me, there was a pattern of discrimination beginning on the flight from JFK. Now, I want to just turn it over to you after raising a few thoughts, because I don't quite see it the way the DOT did. I look at this as a matter not of color, not of race, but of conduct. You have to obey the orders of people under these kinds of situations. And I don't care whether you're wearing a yarmulke or you're not. I don't care if you're Jewish or you're not. And I raise again the idea, what if the crew tried to identify the particular 10? I don't offhand see a way in which they could do this legitimately without causing more chaos. And so I don't know what you do even after you arrive in Frankfurt. If you start to then try and separate people and try and identify them one way or the other, I see chaos and huge news stories and allegations of abuse and discrimination. That's where I'm leaving it to you, because I come out on the more conservative, factual side of the case. In my view, it's not a matter of religious discrimination at all. It's a question of safety and security.
Well, first thing is, a German airline should never single out Jews and exclude them from anything. I'm kind of joking. But I do think, did these people have particular seats? Did they sit in the seats?
Well, that's so you say, could they have identified the seats?
Right.
I don't know that. And also, you don't know whether they would just change seats just
because of ruckus.
Just see. But I thought of that notion. Well, I think they had I don't want to say something in a ringer, but I'd just say.
It was a no-win situation because you had 10 uncooperative people. And let's face it, I hate to say this because I'm going to get in trouble for it, but a lot of times when people are wearing all those religious garbs, you can't really tell who's who.
Dark hair,
right?
Costumes, costumes with
the religious garb, we'll call it.
No, I see it as a no-win there, and I think Lufthansa probably did the only thing they could do was shut up
and paid them a substantial sum.
Absolutely.
Because normally, when airlines screw you over, Stu, you're lucky if you get a $200 voucher.
Yeah, you get a lunch.
You get nothing. But,
They were in such a horrible situation. They who brought you Bergen-Belsen, they who brought you Auschwitz, they can't do what other people might do.
no, but I will say this. I don't think I've flown Lufthansa or whatever, but the way the airlines treat their customers, I have no sympathy for these motherfuckers. They can get what they deserve. Because I tell you what, Stu, I was in Barcelona this summer. They canceled my damn flight, said it was the weather. That's their usual excuse, right? They reschedule it for the next day at 8 a.m. Then right before the middle of later in the day and in the evening, they changed the 8 a.m. flight to 10 p.m. I had to stay an extra night in Barcelona, which was a big hardship.
Yeah, it really
was. It was amazing. And then I get to the airport, it was complete chaos to get on the plane, and everyone was kind of aggravated and agitated. I really wasn't, because I knew I was going to get on the plane.
Is this all about you now?
No, but what I'm saying is, and you know what? I complained to them and asked them to reimburse me for my hotel. They refused. I tried to challenge it on my credit card. They said, no, it's because of the weather. And finally, I did get a $250 voucher. I did not get $20,000. So I guess that's something. But at the end of the day, the airlines treat their customers like garbage. So garbage in, garbage out. Screw that.
I will give you one contrary piece of information.
Go ahead.
Traveled Lufthansa. It's probably about 30 some odd years ago, and on a business trip out to Germany, and or to Istanbul. I can't recall, but I was fortunate enough to be traveling with the vice president of GE, and therefore was allowed to sit up front in the first class.
Now it's all coming out.
Yeah, but here's the good part. You'll never believe it. We smoked. We were given cigars.
Oh, that's right, because in those days you could smoke them.
We were given cigars. Okay, so there's my Lufthansa story. That's all.
Well, all I know is the airline I flew was Delta, and they should pay a brutal price for the way they mistreated me.
Do you? Oh, yeah, of course. Do you have any further remarks or
No.
comments about that situation?
No, other than, once again, I just want spite on the airlines for fun, because I'm spiteful. I remain a very spiteful person. I was born this way.
You fooled me.
Yeah. Now, Stu, let's move to our local arena here. We've moved beyond the election. Jews flying on a German airline and getting segregated. God knows what some of those more fastidious Germans had up their sleeve. So let's talk about some local happenings.
Well, I could give you one.
Go ahead.
And it's about theater in New York City. It's a Broadway story that just came to my attention a few days ago and probably isn't much older than that. And here's the cast of characters. Patti LuPone, who has a serious history in theater. She's a theater legend. And Mia Farrow, who has other stories about her, but they're in a two-character play called The Roommate, and it's at the Booth Theater on Broadway. And now Farrow, she's got an interesting background, just for those who don't know her quickly. She was formerly involved with Woody Allen a long time ago and accused him of molesting their adopted girl.
And I believe Mia fully. That's all I just was going to say. I hate Woody Allen.
Okay. Thank you for that objective response.
He's a rapist and a pedo, like Tim Walt.
She was also married to Andre Previn, the wonderful composer, and she was married to Frank Sinatra for some short period.
One of the greatest Italian-American citizens, who was once again discredited by the left.
I love this. And so those two were in this play that's gotten good reviews and is currently playing at the Booth Theater. The other character in this play is a lady named Kecia Lewis. She's black. She's a Tony Award-winning actress, so that's something to be recognized. She is currently in a show called Hell's Kitchen in the Schubert Theater. Now, the Schubert and the Booth both share a back wall. And some of the music from Hell's Kitchen in the Schubert Theater was getting through the wall into the Booth Theater and interfering with those on stage, meaning the twosome, and those backstage, and the audience, who, oh, by the way, was probably paying $100 to $300 for a seat and doesn't expect to be abused by outside noise. So I saw about 2 days ago online a video that was prepared by this Kecia Lewis. And it's an open letter, as she says, to Patti LuPone, in which she says, LuPone asked, and there's no dissent from this, there's no contest to this stuff. She says that LuPone asked the owners of the Schubert, that's the place where Kecia was performing with Hell's Kitchen. She asked the Schubert Theater to alter the sound design of Hell's Kitchen. And later, says Lewis, LuPone sent flowers to the sound people and the stage management of the Schubert, thanking them for having accommodated her request. So far, I don't see anything weird about that in my view. Something has to be done to accommodate people who are in adjacent theaters. Probably should have been thought about long before it came to this. So then Lewis adds another little point. She adds a video, a clip from a video that shows LuPone outside the theater refusing to sign a playbill for someone who had come from Hell's Kitchen. And she says, audibly, they're too loud. Okay, now, from this, I would just say that the woman had cause, LuPone had cause to be concerned, and she certainly had the stature to bring the position up to management of another theater and say, look, this is what's happening. Can you help? Kecia Lewis doesn't see it that way. She says in the video that LuPone's actions are bullying, offensive, racially microaggressive. Now, I never heard that expression.
I've heard it.
Now, Lewis goes on to say that it's rooted in, that the actions and microaggression is rooted in privilege, and when referring to a predominantly black Broadway show, as loud can unintentionally reinforce harmful stereotypes. Well, you got to be kidding me. And it also feels, she said, dismissive of the artistry and the voices that are being celebrated on stage. In one sense, this reminds me kind of an argument that could take place in an apartment house with two adjacent apartments, whether co-op or rental or whatever. And it reminds me of the nuisance theory, that used to be prevalent out there when there's a noise problem from the outside causing a problem. But here's it, this is inside buildings, and I just think I see LuPone as having acted fairly, and that these accusations of racial misconduct and unintentionally causing harm and dominion over the black people, I think that's preposterous.
Well, this is an example of when you allow people to use their identity as a cudgel, as the far radical left has done. Her explanation is ridiculous, and she obviously is using her race to shame the white, more famous actress, Patti LuPone. And frankly, I saw Hell's Kitchen. It's an Alicia Keys musical, got really good reviews. Yeah. I was bored by it. I didn't think it was very good. I thought that I enjoyed some of the music, but I thought the main character, who was played by Kecia, was insufferably annoying. And I really couldn't connect with the show. And maybe because I was engaging in microaggressions myself, but merely she just played this annoying little brat who needed to be slapped around by her mother. And, Patti LuPone is an obnoxious personality. She is a diva, and I could just picture her doing that, like making a big stink of it. But I don't think it has anything to do with race. It has to do that she's a self-indulgent, annoying, rude woman. And why wouldn't she sign a playbill from a fan? She's rude. The fans are what make her what she is. But that isn't racial. She's just an asshole. And I've seen her in interviews before. And at one point someone asked, Madonna played Evita in the movie, and she played her on Broadway. That was one of her key roles, right? And she said, Madonna can't act. She can't sing. She's terrible, blah, blah, blah. I was like, that really doesn't come off as very nice. And by the way, Madonna, you may not love her, but she's far more successful than Patti LuPone. She's certainly made more money, and a lot of people like her. And why would you trash someone like that? It makes you look bad. And Patti LuPone was also fired from Sunset Boulevard by Andrew Lloyd Webber a long time ago. She played in London, and she was fired and replaced by Glenn Close, and she sued Andrew Lloyd Webber, got some money out of it and all that. But I think she's a troublesome personality.
Do you
So
think her actions in this case were inappropriate?
probably not. Although I hate her. I think she's obnoxious, and I recently saw her in the. She's no longer as good as she used to be. Frankly, I mean, I saw her recently in Company, which was a remake of the. It was a remake of the show. Who's the name of the guy they all go crazy about? Who did it? Well, you know who he is, Sondheim. He was, yeah, and it was a good, it was an excellent performance. I liked it, but I didn't think she was all that great in that either. So, Patti, let's pack it up, go to Connecticut, and grow up.
Well, thank you very much.
But, it's funny listening to these two divas fight it out. That's basically what it sounds like to me.
I don't know that it's gone any further.
Well, I want a cat fight on the streets. Well, Stu, I have my own New York story and a personal Jesus. His name is Mickey Barretto. You probably have no idea who this guy is, except he's crazy and he's a scam artist, okay? The New Yorker Hotel, which is right near Penn Central, Penn Station, It's been around forever. It's currently under ownership by the Unification Church, a.k.a. the Moonies. And
Isn't it an immigrant place or no?
no, not yet.
Not yet.
Give them time. It's a tourist kind of hotel, but when it first opened in the 1930s, it has a very rich history. Nikola Tesla, another great Italian-American, lived there for the last 10 years of his life, or an Italian who was American also. And Muhammad Ali stayed there back in its heyday. Now, it's still open today, and if you ask me, it's not like your first class cigar smoking ride to wherever you're going. I don't remember in all your luxury habits still. It's a little, if you ask me, it's a little seedy. I would never stay there in a million years. I would have to wrap myself up in a hazmat suit. God knows what's all over the walls of that hotel. Well, Mickey, he checked into the hotel for about $200 and then lived there for the next 5 years without ever paying a nickel to them. And what he did is he relied on some crazy old school New York City rent law, and he became and claimed to be a full-time resident of the hotel. Then he decided, he took it a little step further after living there for 5 years for free, and he went and he created a kind of fraudulent deed for the hotel, put his name on it, went down to City Hall, and they accepted it without question and then became an owner of the hotel and took it away from the Moonies, okay? All right? He then went to the diner in the lobby of the hotel, which I guess paid rent to the hotel, and told them to pay the rent to his room where he was staying for free. And then he also tried to have all the accounts of the hotel put in his name. Crazy like a fox, right? Finally, the hotel realized all this was going on, and they sued him. Yeah, and it took a while. I think it was just last year where they finally, 23, excuse me, where they evicted my hero, Mickey, out of the hotel. And
What about prosecution?
well, he is being prosecuted on 24 counts, including 14 for felony fraud. But here's the rub, Stu. The judge said he was unfit for trial because he's crazy.
Oh, I'm upset by this.
Really?
Yeah, I am. Crazy. That's crazy. Like that mob guy who used to, not Genovese, whatever his name was, who used to walk around in a bathrobe to keep his character going.
Well, Mickey, Stu, is
He
going.
did all these very smart things over
Right.
30 years.
How crazy is he? He's crazy like a fox. But I know you're disgusted by Mickey. I find a certain charm in his totally devious criminal
I
behavior.
have to laugh and smile at it. I'm also amazed that it could go on so long without some of the management getting their lawyers in and getting this guy the hell out or combating his efforts. But I certainly don't want to see a guy like that get away with the criminal conduct. You bet I want to see him.
You want to lock him up.
How old is this bastard?
I don't know. I don't have his age, but he's probably.
I don't really care.
I don't care what his age is irrelevant, but this is the kind of person that Fat Alvin Bragg would probably let out loose on the streets again and allow him to victimize another hotel owner. But at the same time, even though he did all this,
It's not stabbing or killing someone or pushing someone on the tracks.
that's true. That's true. He's an upgrade from that. But I don't know. I know you're being more law and order, more fair-minded,
I am.
but I kind of admire this guy. He's crazy. Crazy like a fox.
It's just the guy, what's his name? The one who used to live on the other side of Washington Square. And he marched up and down in his bathroom just to keep his...
That was a mob guy too,
He
wasn't
was one of the top mob guys.
Yeah.
Vincent
Gigante.
Gigatti. You crossed yourself.
I did. I gave the sign of the cross because I respect these people. We have selective law enforcement nowadays. We go after people who don't deserve it, and then we let all the criminals loose on me.
I have an important question to ask.
Yeah.
Did he show up in court? Am I correct? Did he show up in court in one of his...
He did. I think he may have.
Out of the bathroom.
Well, I only hope the bathrobe was from Frate, which is a very high-end. You know what it is.
No, I don't, but I figured that's what you
It's a very high-end linen store. I'll take you, Stu, and get you a
that's fine.
smoking jacket for your cigar. That's cigar-filled
That's
flight.
okay.
Okay.
I was upstairs on the roof with a friend. We had 2 days ago, beautiful day. We had wonderful cigars, and a couple of beers, and some popcorn, and some peanuts, and some cheese.
So you were turning our roof deck into a bear hall. You do realize, Stu, you violated the rules.
Yeah, I guess I did. I know. I should be prosecuted for that. Yeah, I think it's...
You rebel.
Yeah, others are aware of that, and as long as I clean up and take care of things, no one's chastised me.
Well, you know what? It is open air, and the people who made those rules, they don't enforce any of the rules in this building, so they can go screw themselves too.
I leave the place cleaner and neater than I found it.
I'm sure you do.
Out there.
I'm sure you do, because the way this building is run is terrible, and they don't maintain it well.
But up on the roof, it's the people who are abusive, the people who live here and their guests who are abusive. They'll leave dirt and
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
chairs aren't put back in place and there's litter. And I go up and I rip out some weeds and this every time I'm up there.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go up there right now and cause some problems. But anyway, Stu, once again, it is a pleasure having you for this discussion. And I know you're not like me, but I am relishing and enjoying all the sadness and misery of those losers in the Democrat Party. Poor Nancy Pelosi, she looks so disappointed.
They really find it very hard to look themselves in the mirror and see why they got to where they got.
They really do. And truthfully, they just don't get it. And the people who dislike them aren't stupid. They aren't Nazis or fascists. They have just had enough of being condescended to by these horrible scum. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I guess that about does it. Yeah.
Yeah, it does for now. And I was almost going to launch into another.
No, don't say
Yeah, I can't. I don't have the energy for it. All right, till next time, Stu.
Yes.